Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. Happy Thursday. This is going to be a good live today. We are on day 26 of my 30-day challenge, and I am so excited for this particular live today. And let me check my settings just to make sure we're good. Okay. All right. We are good. So thank you all so much for joining today. And just in case you all don't know me, thank you so much for joining. My name is Tiffany Newton. I'm a Master Certified Health and Life Coach, and I am the co-parenting coach. And actually, the person that encouraged me to say that is joining me today. And I'm talking about Katie Reid. She's an associate licensed therapist dealing in mental health. And I know you all have probably seen the flyer for today. Thank you, Erin, for joining. But I'm going to bring her up. I'm going to let her introduce herself because I know she can do it a lot better than me. So let me bring her up now. Hey, Katie.
Hi.
How you doing?
I am fantastic. I am excited.
Yes.
I am just ready because I know this is going to be so good and I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Yes, yes. I know it is too, girl. I'm just so excited about our discussion today. I was so antsy today, and I was like, I hope I'm not sending her too well, really this week. I was like, I hope I'm not sending her too many text messages.
Listen, I need that and I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Good, good. I definitely appreciate you. But I want to welcome my Instagram family and my Facebook family, as well as the Teach Me Tribe YouTube channel as well. That family, and you know what? I just want to, I want to jump in. We have been talking about our. Uh, I'm sorry. Okay. I can't see the comments sometimes. So I was like, who you waving at? Okay. But we have been talking about my child first method the past couple of weeks, and we really been digging into the details of what that child first method is, because I help co-parents, help establish and create healthy co-parent relationships.
Mhm.
So they want to experience long-term communication goals and communication issues, and the main goal is for us to raise emotionally healthy children. And say they do that by using my child first method. So we've been really been breaking it down. Um, my my children just getting here, so oh, I might have to. I knew this was gonna happen. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, I'm on my live. Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. Love you.
Oh.
Come on, Justice. Come on, give me a hug real quick. Yeah, I'm on my live. Come on, give me a hug. Close the door real good. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I knew that was gonna happen.
Oh.
Speaking of children, I hear yours in the background too.
Listen, anytime kids get behind a closed door, they just don't know how to function sometimes.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. Especially when you were always open to them.
Yeah, yeah.
But we've been breaking down the child first method, and the child is an acronym. So it's communication, which involves partnership and collaboration, honoring the other parent's role, involvement
Okay.
with the child, and letting go of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and determining what's best for the child together. So this week we've been talking about letting go of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. So when I was preparing for this, I was like, I gotta have KD involved with this one because I know how much it can impact us mentally and emotionally and
Yes.
psychologically.
Yes.
So So I don't know if you have any. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I didn't do that with the interruption.
Okay,
Uh,
you're fine. No. So
so
my name is Katesha or KD. I go by both, and I'm an associate licensed therapist here in the state of Alabama. And I also am a coach for women who are moms and wives, helping them to learn who they are outside of that role. I love mental health. I am so excited when we can incorporate mental health in our everyday life, and not just think of it in a negative way. So I am very thankful for you to have me on your platform today because there's so many people who need this. So
yeah,
many people, parents and children and adults who weren't co-parented properly. Like it's just going to help so many people.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree, and I'm just so excited. Thank you for joining, Dorcas. Thank you for joining. So let's just jump in this. And as you all know, our focus, and I know KD's focus as well, is always going to be on the child,
Yeah.
and what's in the best interest of the child. So everything that we're going to talk about is going to encompass that. So
Mhm.
think about that as we are discussing. So I kind of want to start off with a couple questions, just for us to get the conversation going. And the first one that I want to ask you is, how can mental health play a role in co-parenting? Considering the fact that, I mean, we're having this live, I mean, what is it about mental health that can play a part in co-parenting?
So the number one thing, as you said earlier, is we need to keep the child centered at all decisions. And so the biggest part of mental health will be what is that child's mental health. The things that we as adults do is going to impact that child. The things they hear, the things they see, the things they feel, because sometimes we as parents feel like we are protecting them from certain things, or we are hiding certain things, or we're doing a good job keeping certain things from them. But a lot of times kids feel things. They feel the tension. They see the way mom may act when dad is there, or the way mom may act when dad leaves. So kids pick up on a lot of things. And so we need to keep in mind what our decisions are doing to the child's mental health, because the child has to be the center of everything we do and say.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I actually, I mean, did a live on just that, just the
Mhm.
emotional impact that it
Yeah.
has on a child. And how is it that, you know, or I should say, I know, especially in the co parenting aspect,
Mhm.
in the beginning, whether it's a divorce or a breakup, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a
So,
lot of change.
yeah,
And, kids are going to observe. They're going to see, is because divorce doesn't have to be a negative thing.
yeah,
I've had kids sit in front of me in therapy and say, I am glad, I am grateful, my anxiety
wow,
is less, because they're aware of things that are going on.
wow,
So it's important how we shape what this divorce is, and that it means that we're no longer in a unit, but we're still a family unit, and our family may look different, right? So
yeah,
even from that beginning, from you talking to the child about what's about to happen, what we say, what we do, how we act, the accountability, like all of that is important, because that's going to impact the child's mental health. It's the
yeah,
same thing when parents tell me, their relationship is so toxic, but they're staying together for the kids. A
yeah.
lot of times the kids don't want that.
Hmm.
So kids know. So if we begin by the very first time we're talking about divorce, and we shape it as, listen, this doesn't mean mommy is a bad person. This doesn't mean daddy is a bad person. And this absolutely doesn't mean this is your fault. Because
Yeah,
what we see, I would say the biggest thing kids take personal, is they feel like it's their fault. They feel
mhm,
like there's something they did, right? And so
yeah,
then what that sets the tone for their life is, anytime there's a disagreement, whether it's them and their partner, or them and a friend, or whoever, they're going to start to internalize it. What did I do to cause this? And
mm,
the answer is nothing. sometimes things just don't work. And so we have to start at the very beginning, being intentional and careful about the language we use, because this is change. This is a change for kids. They may have to change school. It's going to be a change because they're not going to be
Mhm.
able to go to one home and see mommy and dad, but so the way we need to set the environment, all
Mhm.
of that impacts their mental health.
Yeah. So how can we communicate as co-parents, with our children about their emotions, and their mental health struggles? I mean, because you have all kinds of different kids. You have
Hmm.
kids that are more verbal,
Yeah.
and you know something wrong with them.
Yep.
Then you also have kids that are, a lot more introvert, and they might keep it to themselves. So how can we as parents actually, you know,
Mhm.
talk to our kids about potential struggles or the mental health as far as dealing with the emotions?
So I would say pay attention. Pay attention and know that, just like you said, you could have three kids and they could all be handling it differently. And the child that appears to be well adjusted doesn't mean they are. So pay attention and check in with no, with all the kids, no matter how they appear. So yeah, there's going to be kids who are, their behaviors are going to speak for them. So their behaviors may be like rebellious, or they may just become someone different, because it's a lot of big feelings. Imagine when adults get divorced or when adults break up, sometimes those feelings are so big we don't know how to process them, right? Because we didn't expect this. No one gets married expecting
Right.
to be divorced. So if we don't know how to process that, imagine a child doesn't know how to process that, right? So
Yeah.
their behaviors may act out. So those are going to be the kids that we know we need to check in with, or provide them another avenue, such as a therapist or a counselor. Because sometimes what kids don't do is they won't talk to their parents, because one, they don't want to add more on your plate. They
Mhm.
feel like you're already going through a lot, so they don't want to be an extra thing on your plate. And number two, they don't want you to feel guilty if one of the feelings they have is they're mad at you. And so it's
Mm.
important, and it's, even if it's not a therapist, even if it's a trusted family member or friend, I suggest a therapist because they're non-biased, but
Mhm.
give them that outlet to talk to that person, right? But I say
Mhm.
also pay attention to the child that is well adjusted, because what we have to make sure is not happening is that child is people pleasing. That
Mm.
child is pretending to keep it all together. That child is, oh, everything's fine. We're good. Are you okay? Oh, I'm okay. And on the inside, they are just as confused as the child that's acting out. They are just as hurt. They're just as, all the feelings that come with this change. We have to check in with them too. Let them know that, you know, I want to know what you feel. And it's
Yeah.
okay if the feelings you have are, I always tell people I don't think feelings are good or bad, because they just are what we are and they're shaped by our experiences. But
Mhm.
you can, to simplify it for a child, you can say, hey, it's okay if the feelings you have are not good. And it's okay if they're towards me. When
Mm.
we talk, when we communicate, there's no, that you don't get in trouble for us talking. I want to know how you feel. And
Right.
then don't just say, hey, how do you feel? Because that's like putting someone on the spot, like saying, tell me about yourself. Then we're all like, well, what do you want to know? Do you want to know, do I got kids? Do you want to know what elementary school I went to? Like, you got to ask specific questions. Um, hey, I know things are different. Is
Mm.
that okay with you? Or, hey, I know we're used to sitting at the dinner table with four people. How does it feel that there's only three? Or things like that. So we have to be intentional about the questions that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so good. Thank you again for joining Instagram. And if you all want to see us, we are on Facebook and YouTube. So, but you can still hear us as well. Um, I thought it was so good, um, how you mentioned about the intentionality, especially for the child who does appear strong, because I can see, adults, who have had divorced parents, growing up in a instance to where they have become people pleasers, because of that environment and that experience.
Yeah.
How can we as parents really like come together? We do have separate households, and you
Yeah.
know let's say, I mean, because I had a child that was really dealing emotionally, so we really had to band together and support him. So how can
Mhm.
parents come together to for the betterment of their child, especially when it is a child that's struggling, whether they're acting out in school,
Yeah.
because that's where it comes out at,
Mhm.
because that's where they're at majority of the time.
Yep.
you know can they put their feelings aside, to actually see their child?
Right. And I think communication is going to be key. And so, I think the best thing to do is to make sure that individually those parents have had counseling, or, if they don't believe in that, then talk to someone, because you have to sometimes come together when it's still tender.
Yeah.
Sometimes come together when I still don't even like you, or
Yeah.
sometimes come together when I can't believe that you've already moved on, like all those things. So in that moment, I can't see you as the husband I was mad at, or the ex-husband, or that. I have to see you as the person I'm parenting with.
Yeah.
And so those are two different roles. And I have to stay focused on what that role is, because this is bigger than both of us.
Right.
This is our child, and this child is an innocent bystander. So we have to make sure they're not a casualty. We have to make sure they
Mhm.
know that at the end of the day, we are a united thing. Because what, and I won't say all kids, but what kids have the tendency to do, and this is whether you co-parent or not, is they will use parents against each other, because their entire goal is just to get what they want.
Oh yeah.
So say, for example, if you live in a home, right, and you get a divorce, and so y'all are co-parents, and so one parent has to move into an apartment.
Hmm.
Well, this is completely different for the child. So we
Hmm.
have to make sure that when I say we're together, that we are together and not try to make our house the better house, right?
Mm.
This is just two different homes you have. This is not
Right.
better,
Right.
because sometimes some of the things that are impacting the divorce or the co-parent being healthy is the parents are not healed. The
Yes.
parents are still being petty, and petty behavior hurts children.
Yeah.
If you call me and say, "Hey, I know you got little Donnie this weekend. He got into some trouble. He's kind of grounded over here. If you could, be consistent over there." And you say, "Oh, okay, cool." But then you get off the phone and you're like, "Hey, I think we should go buy a PlayStation today." Or,
Mm.
"Hey, I know your mom was tripping over there, but over here, we have to be, again, intentional about the language we use,
Yeah.
because kids are going to pick up on everything. So then this is going to become the home that has discipline, and this is going to become the home where we just do whatever we want to do.
Right.
So we have to communicate and let that child know that, hey, whether we're together or not, you have to respect us. You don't want to speak negatively in front of that child, even if you don't agree with what the other parent said. That's a
Mm.
conversation you have with the parent,
Yeah.
not with the child, because that child may use any bit of information.
Yeah. Yeah. They something else. And it's funny, as you were talking. Hey Terrence, thank you for joining. As you were talking, I was thinking, a lot of things. I know I've said this before on my lives, but a lot of things that we should have learned while we were married and together, we still have to do it now. You know,
You still got to learn to communicate, whether you're
yeah, you
together
still have to
or
learn to
not.
communicate. You have to learn how to work together,
Yeah.
because those kids will play. I mean, they play you against each other even when you're in the same house.
Yes.
You know,
So imagine when y'all in two different houses, when y'all
oh
already
yeah,
seeing each other through her eyes, when y'all already, have these thoughts about them. This is just extra ammunition for them.
it really is. It really
Yeah.
is, and it really gives more of uh, an emphasis on working together
Hmm.
and communicating, and that partnership role
Yeah.
that we have to play with each other. I tell you, this is good. Now, if anyone have any questions, please put it in a chat. I don't want to leave y'all out because this is some really good conversation. I wanted to ask, as it relates to communicating with our child in regards to emotions, on the other end, how safe is it to actually talk to them about how we're feeling? You know, I mean, because I know,
Mm,
all kids are different ages.
mm-hmm.
So I know some parents I've known, they'll talk to their teenagers, especially if it's a woman and their daughter.
Yeah, yeah,
They'll talk to them because they're entering somewhat of a friend stage.
yep, yeah.
But how much should be conveyed to
Mm,
children in regards to how you're feeling
mm.
about their father, because they're still their father,
Feel their father.
or their mother.
Yeah.
How much should we really be talking to our kids about the other parent?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And mm, I would say try to keep it about the situation if you're going to talk to them. Hey, say if you're talking to your child, right, and they're not really opening up, you could share with them, hey, I know that this is a change, and right now, mommy is sad about this too. Not,
Mm.
I know this is a change, and well, it's your daddy's fault that we're going through this, and if he would have did this or this, you don't want to say that because again,
That's been said.
yeah, because again, what can happen is you may think that it's just about to be you and the child against them, but they're going to start to be resentful towards you because that's still their
Mm,
dad. They
right.
don't know their dad the way you know their dad, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of that. But I think it's important to share how you feel. Today I'm sad, or um, this is not what I expected. To let
Mm,
them know that things happen. But you could also say, hey, we're going to get through this. Or I'll be okay soon. Or I'm talking to a therapist or things like that. So I would keep it general because I always think it's important for kids to know how you feel or to
yeah.
know that you do feel, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd always try to forecast into their future. And so imagine if you don't say anything or if you just pretend like all is well, look, we separated, we co-parent, we good, and then your child grows up and your child ends up in a situation where they have to co-parent and they're
Mm,
like, oh, this does not feel good, I feel helpless, I feel hopeless, this hurts. Then in their mind they're going to say, well, my mom and my dad, they didn't have these feelings, so there must be something wrong with me.
mm,
And in reality, you did have those feelings, you just didn't share it with them. So they don't have to
mm,
know specifics, and nor should they know specifics, right? But
yeah.
they need to know that you feel. They
Mm,
need to know that there's going to be things in life that we experience that we did not expect.
yeah.
But even though we're sad, we're going to be okay. Even though we're sad, I have to get counseling. Even though, because maybe it's not the co parenting situation. Maybe they have a situation where a friendship doesn't work out. And if they've never seen someone deal with something unexpected,
Hmm.
then if they have to, it's going to be like, well, dang, I never saw nobody deal with nothing like this. But people
Right.
were dealing with it. They just weren't talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I tell you, it's so many different layers to this.
Oh God, yes.
I
Yes.
mean, and a lot of times
Yes.
we don't know what we don't know,
This is true.
because
This is true.
even, and I remember posting something that said something along the lines of, living a certain life to where our kids won't inherit our trauma.
Yes.
And when we, go through these things and when we're not even honest with them
Yes.
about what we go through, it really it kind of builds a wall for them to where when they get older, they're doing the same thing that we're doing,
Yep.
and not really
Absolutely.
being honest and accepting feelings and accepting emotions.
Yeah.
Um, I
It
tell
can
you,
become a cycle because imagine if your parents got divorced, right, and you became one of those kids who people pleased. So then when
mhm,
you got married, your spouse may have done some stuff that was just like completely you should not have accepted it, but you didn't want to rock the boat. You didn't want to end up divorced like your parents, so you dealt with a lot of stuff and then one day you just couldn't take it, right? So
mhm,
that's two cycles of divorce. And then what if you become bitter and was like, well, I knew this marriage wasn't gonna work anyway because my mama marriage didn't work and I thought they was perfect. So that didn't work. And now it's self-fulfilling. Your marriage didn't work. And then if you're bitter and you're not cautious about the words you use, you could then scar your child to not want to be married. And so then if
Mm.
they don't believe in marriage, who knows how they can handle other people when they encounter them in relationship.
Wow.
Mhm.
I tell you, I should have been taking notes during this conversation. I hope y'all are taking notes that's listening. Because
Mm.
he's dropping some gems. I mean, then you just be spitting it out like it ain't nothing. I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like, okay, slow down, go back, let's rewind what you just said there. Because this is so good. Please, if y'all have any questions, please put them in the chat because I have another question I want to ask. Um, because what are some strategies that we can actually implement um, when we're dealing with conflict
Mm.
with each other? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in two different households now,
Yep.
and we might have different rules. Of course, we're different people.
Yeah.
Let's say we're both still working through the healing process,
Yeah. You have
and
to have boundaries.
yes,
You
but
have
we
to
still
have boundaries.
have a positive, environment for our child. What is it
Hmm.
that we can do?
So I always believe that people have to have boundaries, but boundaries looks different. So maybe your boundary is you explain to the child that, I respect what is going on in that house, but we do things differently here. And then if you and the other co-parent are communicating, a strategy you want to use is you want to make sure that you look into, there's like a whole set of rules for fighting fair, because fights are going to happen, disagreements are going to happen. It's just, you need to do it fairly. So one way and one boundary you could have is, listen, at drop off, if there's anything you need to tell me that could entice a conversation or an argument, then you probably should tell me away from the child. you know, like, oh, so he did this today, and I think you should do this, this, and this, and this, and this. That's a conversation that y'all should have. So maybe even y'all have to have separate co-parenting times, because y'all are not pillow talking, but maybe y'all need to come together and have time, because you don't want the situation, the drop off situation or whatever it is, to be more awkward than it may already be, you know?
Yeah.
And so sometimes there are things, if you feel like, I just cannot see this person, because maybe you're at a place where I just don't want to see you yet.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have to co-parent, but I'm just not at a place where I can see you yet. Then a strategy you may have to implement is having a neutral person that transports your child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to make sure that you follow the other person's rules, like they're comfortable. So say, for example, if we were married and then we separated, now we're co-parenting, and I bring my partner, if you're not comfortable with that, sometimes we have to be the bigger person and not say, well, she just got to deal with it because this is my new person. Sometimes you may have to be like, okay, I can understand how this could be triggering.
Mm-hmm.
So a strategy is, I need to, again, this is about the child.
Right.
Why would I force this person on on my co-parent and my child, if I know that when I'm dropping my child off to you, that I'm dropping off to his mom, that may put his mom in a mood.
Yeah.
All because I need to prove a point. That's not putting the child first. So
Yeah.
sometimes we got to take a deep breath, and we have to ask ourselves, why am I pushing so hard for this? Why am I pressing so hard to have this conversation? Why am I pushing so hard for these rules to be changed? Like, what is it? Is it because I want the child to like me more? Is it because I want to stand my ground? Like, what is it? And if it's not for the benefit of the child, you have to let it go, because everything in childhood shapes everything that we become in life. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that we can't be changed, but who knows what you will encounter before you get to the point to where you are changed.
Yes.
And so if we can put our ego to the side, if we can put our need to be right to the side for the betterment of our child, to raise an emotionally healthy child, why would we not?
Yeah.
Why would we not?
Yeah. I ask that question all the time, KD. I think it's simple, but lifing is not simple. You know,
No, no,
you know,
because it's two different people. Y'all are two different people. And you have to
exactly.
remember that as the co parent, a part of you is still looking at this person like, I don't know you. I don't know this
Right.
version of you.
Right, right.
Or I am grieving. If y'all were married and then you're grieving because no one is at that altar thinking. Let me say never. I won't say never. Some people may. Most people are not at that altar saying, yeah, we're going to get this a good 6, 5, 10 years. And then I'm going to have to go on and we're just going to let this go. No one's thinking that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of emotions. Is in a best case scenario, it would be easy to say, hey, listen, this didn't work. Let's just co-parent. But that's not reality. It's always a work in progress, but we have to keep asking ourselves. And I would say I'm not co-parenting, so I'm not an expert on that, but I am an expert on mental health. So, and I work with a lot of people. I would say the hardest thing to do, but it's still, you have to keep the child first though, is to keep the child first when the other person is not.
Hmm.
Keep the child first when the other person's behaviors aren't showing that they trying to keep the child first.
Yeah. That's
When they're
common.
trying to go low or when they're trying to be petty, and you have to still keep focused. Feel what you feel because
Mhm.
you're human, but you have to, no matter what is going on around you or what the other parent is doing, you have to keep the child first. Because let me say, there are children who sit in front of me who know. They may not know everything. Or when parents come back and say, oh, I know their other parent told them this. And a lot of times I have to sit with the child and say, no, that parent never said that about you. The child,
Mhm.
it can see. The child knows. So the anger the child has is not because of something they heard. Very rarely is it because of something they heard, but it's everything they saw. It's everything they felt. It's how they see that when you checked out of being a husband, you also checked out of being a dad. Kids see,
Mhm. Yeah.
they know. So I always tell parents, hey, you do not have to prove to the child that their other parent is lacking or slacking or whatever. You don't have to prove that to them.
Yeah. That's
Because
true.
at the end of the day, always they will always know. It doesn't matter if that other parent is absent and buying Jordans and you are struggling buying light up shoes. The kid gonna choose the light up shoes every time because they know. And then when kids get older, let me say another mentality they develop is they will learn to use people for money because they know you're not
Mhm.
consistent. They know when you come, it's here, this is what I can do, this is what I can buy. So then that's the relationship you start to cultivate with them. And so that relationship that y'all have is just about what can I get from you? Because
Wow.
kids know everything. They know feelings, they know how they feel, they know how you make them feel. They
Hmm.
know how you said that you were going to be there for them and then you moved out of the house and you moved out of their life. They know that. And so then you're putting a chip on their shoulder to where they feel like they got to grow up and be this extraordinary father to make up for the father you weren't, or to make up for the mother you weren't.
Mm.
And that's not fair.
Wow. Wow. That's good. I got another question in my head, but I want to get to Tara's question. She said, if there is um, consternation between, or maybe it's want to say communication between parents, is it best to just ask yourself what's best for the child in order to find best solutions for the child? That way you don't indirectly make the other parent look bad.
I would say you need to always, now you don't have to make excuses for the other parent. I don't believe you have to do that. And I don't believe that you have to um, go out of your way to make the other parent look good. Like, say
Right,
if that parent is not contributing to the household, you don't have to go out of your way and buy gifts and say this is from the other parent because I'm telling you, at the end of the day, the kids are going to always know, right?
right.
So,
Hmm.
what I would say is you always want to do the best solution for the child. Sometimes that solution means to um, lean into the village that y'all create.
Hmm.
Lean into the village that y'all create. And that goes back to checking in on them, letting them know that, hey, I understand you may feel whatever you feel because your parent is not as consistent as we would like. But that does not mean that you are not lovable. That does not mean that you are not worth consistency. Sometimes our parents don't make good decisions.
Right.
Sometimes they need time. Sometimes, whatever, however you want to explain it to them, and then lean into the village that they do have.
Yeah. Yeah.
because we don't want them to feel like they're not lovable. We don't want them to grow up and in their mind they're thinking, well, dang, if my mama didn't want me, how can any woman want me? If my daddy didn't show up for me, how can I depend on any man to show up for me? And then they're already going into situations, friendships, relationships, whatever, thinking that these people are going to leave. So then
Right.
again, they're going to do whatever they can to, they're either going to, one, do whatever they can to keep them there, or two, they're going to self sabotage and keep them at a distance anyway. Because if my parent, this is how kids think, if my parents, the people who created me, who decided to bring me into this world, do not want me, because that's what they're going to feel, want them, then how in the world can anyone else want me?
Wow. I tell you, it's so much deeper than what we think it is. We think it's
Yeah.
all about us, and it's really all about our child.
Yep.
You know? I got another question too. Looks like Eric sent one. He says, "How would I navigate co-parent properly when my new wife is jealous of my ex?"
Woo. Cautiously. Cautiously, because again, this is so it's that's such a good question. And there's two ways to handle it. One I'll talk about, one I won't, because they probably need individual counseling. If
I'm
your
about to say
new
yes.
wife is the reason your ex-wife is your ex-wife,
Oh, that's
that's
another
a whole
story.
different situation. That's a whole different
I know why
situation.
she don't like. They probably don't like each other.
Yes, that's a whole different situation, because you brought that new wife in. If she was your mistress, now she the new wife. She's always coming in under. So that's a whole different situation. But if that's not the case, then you have to ask your wife, why is she jealous? What is she jealous of? And then you have to ask yourself, what have you done? Because you are the link.
Right.
You're the link. What have you done, said, insinuated that there is a jealousy? Because again, if we're focused on the child, we need to be adding to the child. So now the child got four parents. But
Right.
if it's not like that, then why? You are the link. What is the reason? And why can y'all not put the child first?
Yeah. Yeah. And shoot, I would add, you should have gotten married if it went all good with the child.
Absolutely.
But that's just me. I know some people
Yes.
like, my child ain't got nothing to do with this. This is my marriage. I understand. But
But sometimes you gotta dig deep and you gotta see why. You have to
exactly.
see why.
It's
There's a
deeper
lot
than that
of
child not
that
liking
go
them.
into that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I tell you. These some good questions, y'all.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I think I had one more. I probably should have wrote it down because when you were talking, I had it in my head. But if please, if y'all have any other questions, please put it in the chat because we're about to wrap it up. Um, but I wanted to ask you. I know we talked about how um, our emotional health impacts our child, and what is it that we can do to make that better. As far as
Hmm.
communicating with one another. But what if there's an instance to where we just can't,
Mm.
and it's just so
Yeah.
far gone.
Yeah.
It might be, because of the age of the child. The
Yeah.
child might be 16, 17, 18,
Yeah.
or whatever. What do we do in that instance, to just keep our own mental health
Hmm.
as well as try to help our child in the same instance?
That's a good question, because that's reality. That's reality for some people. And I'm a big proponent of protecting your peace. And
Mhm.
if protecting your peace means you got to talk to your child through the phone, then that's the only time you need to communicate. You communicate directly with your child. I think that would be okay, because sometimes it doesn't matter how wonderful a method is, because I love the child method you have. I love that, we know logically we need to put the kid first, but some people just ain't gonna get it.
Right.
People they just not going to get it for whatever reason. And so if your child is older, it's easier, because you just say communicate with the child through the phone. Let your daddy know you need this, let your mama know you need this, and move
Mhm.
on. If they're younger, I think that you have to get to a place, if it's not working, you have to get to the place where you have to ask yourself, what can I do for the betterment of my child? Is this inconsistent behavior? Is this inconsistent presence hurting or harming my child more than it's helping them?
Mm.
Right? Is it better for me to, because it's also not beneficial for us to be trying, and our kids are waiting, our kids are expecting, our kids are texting, and they're not getting a response.
Right.
Because then that again makes them feel unlovable. And what
Yeah.
we have to do then is really walk with that child and a professional through what that grieving process looks like.
Yeah.
And then it's out of your hands, because that child and the other parent will have their own journey to walk. Your
Yeah.
priority has to always be the child, even when the other parent, and still don't badmouth them, because they'll know.
Oh
They're
yeah.
going to find out. They're
Yeah.
going to find out. Sometimes, unfortunately, if a parent is inconsistent, it may be for the best. Because again, lean into the village.
Yeah.
Lean into the village and be intentional and careful about your words. Because as a parent, we can't be like, say if we're on the phone and say, yeah, I'm not going to ever get married again. No one ever wants me. That we don't know how that child is going to internalize that, hey, we're a broken family. Nobody wants us.
Mm.
There's people
Wow.
out here that will take in a whole family. Do you hear me? A whole family.
That's
Wife
true.
and kids, husband and kids, however it is.
That's true.
And we have to allow that. We have
Yeah.
to be open to that. So I don't press something that the other person is not working towards,
Mm.
because
Wow.
that's not good for your mental health, and it's not good for the kids' mental health. Because again, they know. They know. And then that would be a different conversation to sit down with them and say, hey, how do you feel about daddy? And I'm just using daddy for an example, being inconsistent, or, it's been a while since we've heard from daddy. What do you feel? Because listen to kids, they know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will say, don't call them no more. Or they will say, I don't want to deal with them. What we have to be careful that we don't do, number one, don't badmouth them, but also do not obligate these kids to death. Don't be like, well, that's your daddy. You only get one. Okay, the daddy only get one child. What that mean? Don't say, well, if your daddy died today, how would you feel? Well, if the child died today, how would the daddy feel? We
Right.
cannot obligate people just because that's their child's parent. Doesn't mean that child has to accept all kind of behaviors, because again, that's setting them up that just because I hold a title or a role in your life, you're obligated to deal with my behaviors. And I'm not.
Right. Right.
I am
Right.
not. So listen to the kids. Don't just ask them these questions, but for their mental health, listen to them, because that shows them that they have a voice.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree with that. I was talking the other day about things that are within our control and things that are outside of our control, and that's definitely one of them. Terrence, he has a question. We'll make this our last question. He says, "How can you show your child you're there for them, but the other parent uses the system, police, HR, etc., to keep you away?"
Mm. See, that starts to be legal, and I would not know about that. My own personal suggestion would be, I don't know, because that gets real tricky. In that, I think that just goes back to, sometimes some people are just dead set on hurting you
Yeah.
because they know that the child can be used as a pawn.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, and I don't know how expensive the legal system is and all that, but if you know that you have rights, I wouldn't stop fighting for my child.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
I,
stop
I
fighting for my
agree.
child.
I agree. And I would definitely add, be intentional about the time that you do have with them.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
um,
Yes. Don't use that time to talk about the other household. Even if things are great between y'all, still don't use that time that time is for you to develop your relationship so that you and your child can have a healthy relationship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because as they get older, they'll see,
They
depending on
will.
their age, they'll see and they'll know,
Yep.
and they can decide on their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, this has been so good, KD.
Thank you for having me. This is
I
amazing.
almost
I love
don't want to. I almost don't want to end.
it. Listen, look how fast time be going though.
No, it goes so fast. It goes so fast. We're gonna have to definitely do this again. On the
Absolutely.
other side of this challenge, on some things I'm cooking up. Uh, but
Absolutely.
are there any closing words? Anything that you want to close with or say?
What I would say is to, like we said, always keep the child first and do not be afraid. And I don't say this only because I'm a therapist. Do not be afraid to bring in outside parties. Do not be afraid to bring, what I mean by that is professionals, because there are people who are equipped to help you navigate this, to help your child navigate this. Because while your child has to be the forefront, we cannot forget that you are also a human dealing with your own things. And in order for you to be there for your child in the way that you need to be, in the most healed and whole way that you need to be, sometimes you need to be an example for your child of, hey, it's okay if we go talk to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And you got two people here that are here to support y'all.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I'll
Co-parent
say,
coach. I just like the way that sounds.
huh?
I said the co-parent coach. I just like the way that sounds.
I know, and you the one that said it to me. I was like, oh,
I
that sounds
just felt it in my spirit that day.
girl, girl. I tell you, you were speaking, because I've been saying it ever since. Well, I definitely appreciate it. Thank you, Terrence. I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate you being here and you being led by God to throughout this time that we've been together. You've spoke some gems throughout this time.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate it. I hope you all will share this live. Go back and look at it, take notes,
Mhm.
but definitely share it with people that can use this information.
Yeah.
And as we conclude, Katie, let everybody know how to follow you, how to get in touch with you.
Okay. So you can go to my website, www.mirrormomentsmentalhealth.com. And I am on Facebook under Mirror Moments Mental Health. And if you are a woman, I have a group called You Are More Than, So Be More.
I love that. I love that. Well, and if you don't follow me, I'm on Instagram at I am Tiffany D Newton, Facebook at Tiffany D Newton, and also have the Teach Me Tribe. Katie's also part of the Teach Me Tribe as well on Facebook, a place, a safe space where men and women can come together and talk about anything and everything. And we also have a channel where all these lives are as well on YouTube at Teach Me. So please join us and subscribe there. And again, I just thank you all for joining us
Yes.
today and
Yes.
on day 26. And we will be back tomorrow for 27. I'm just, you know, counting the days to the end. It's kind of bittersweet, but it's coming to an end. And I definitely appreciate y'all being on this journey with me. But until then, I will see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.